I'm Dave Kluge with Football Guys, and today we are going to talk about 3 players that you need to go out and acquire right now in your fantasy football league. Now, when I've been doing this video for the last few weeks, we've been talking about some buy low and buy high trade candidates. Today, I'm getting a little bit deeper with some of the guys that I'm talking about. These might be guys that are available on your waiver wire. They might be guys that are available in 2 quarterback or super flex leagues. There are a lot of different ways that you can interpret this video, but these are 3 guys who are trending up that I think you need to go out and get on your team right now. If you have not already, be sure to give us a thumbs up on this video. That's going to help some other viewers find the video. Also, be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys. In addition to these short videos that we are running almost every single day on our channel, we also have full-length shows like the Audible, the Launchpad, and so much more. So you can find that right below. Subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys. Now let's go ahead and dive right in, talking about 3 players that you need to go out and acquire right now in your fantasy football league. Let's start off with one of the more obvious guys. He's rostered in most leagues already, but he is a guy I am trying to trade for in leagues where I don't already have him. Darrell Henderson looks like he is going to be the RB1 for the Los Angeles Rams once again. Now, we don't really know exactly what is going on with Cam Akers, but reading between the lines with the news stories here, it appears as if his time with the Rams is done. Coming up this week, the Rams are going to be on bye. Now, with fantasy managers hurting and trying to fill rosters with all these injuries and bye weeks, Darrell Henderson is a guy that if you have the room on your team and can stash him on your bench for a week, I think you should go out and get him. There are some rumors right now that the Los Angeles Rams are interested in acquiring Christian McCaffrey via trade, but I just don't see how that's going to work out. The Rams have $4.7 million in cap space, and Christian McCaffrey is owed $16 million this year, so I don't see any realistic way where they're going to be able to bring him in. Now, you've got Malcolm Brown in the fold, and Kyren Williams is coming back from injury at some point, but I'm not especially concerned about either of those guys. Malcolm Brown is 29 years old, and he's going to see some passing down work because of his abilities as a pass blocker, but he's not somebody who is built to take on a significant workload at the NFL level. Kyren Williams is way too small to take on a big workload. He's only 5'9". We know about his lack of athleticism based on his relative athletic score and what he did at the combine, so he's not a guy that I'm especially concerned about either. Last year, we saw Darrell Henderson take on the lead back role for the Los Angeles Rams, and during that time, weeks 1 through 12 before he was injured, he was putting up 15.7 fantasy points per game and was the RB14 over that stretch. Now, this obviously is not the same Rams team that went on to win the Super Bowl last year. They've got offensive line problems. Matthew Stafford hasn't been himself. But regardless, Darrell Henderson is going to see a ton of volume. And while the offensive line has struggled this year, Darrell Henderson is averaging more yards per carry than any other running back on the team. You can probably get him right now for close to nothing, with the fears that Kyren Williams or Christian McCaffrey is going to come in and make Darrell Henderson useless, but I think that the team trusts Darrell Henderson enough to give him that role. He should be an RB2 going forward with the occasional boom week, and while he might not live up to that RB14 price tag that we saw from last season, he is still going to be a serviceable RB2 going forward. The next guy I'm going to talk about is a pretty deep pull, and if you're just in a standard 10-team league with a few bench spots, you probably can't justify picking this guy up. But if you're in a dynasty league or if you've got multiple bench spots, go out and get Wan'Dale Robinson. A lot of you listening probably haven't even heard the name Wan'Dale Robinson before. He only played a few snaps in week 1 before getting injured. He's an undersized wide receiver out of Kentucky, but he is set up to explode in fantasy within the next few weeks. The New York Giants are winning. Right now they're 5-1 and they are a fun team, but they are lacking any sort of elite playmaker outside of Saquon Barkley. This team has genuinely been feeding targets to Richie James and David Sills. That's how bad it is right now for the New York Giants. Sterling Shepard is out for the year. Kadarius Toney has only logged 35 snaps all season. Kenny Golladay is a ghost of himself and can't be accounted on for anything. So why wouldn't Wan'Dale Robinson be the guy? Last week, Wan'Dale Robinson played a very small role as he was coming back from a knee injury, and the team was being very careful with him, but he still managed to get into the end zone. Now, I can go on and on about the metrics. Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson had the best route participation rate of any wide receiver last week. His yards per route run were double that of the next closest of any wide receiver so far in the season for the New York Giants. But really, this is just a gut call. He's a young, talented player with a knack for finding the end zone. He's extremely shifty and hard to bring down in the open field, and this team needs anybody besides Saquon Barkley to start generating some offensive yards. Like I said, in most leagues, you could probably just pick him up off waiver wire right now and stash him. If you're in a deep league, you can probably acquire him on the trade market for relatively cheap, but either way, go out and get Wan'Dale Robinson. The team invested a second-round pick in him this year. He ran a 4.440 at the 40-yard dash and is set up to take on a bigger workload for the Giants. Wan'Dale Robinson is a guy that I'm trying to get on as many teams as I possibly can. Now, before I talk about this next guy, I promise this isn't coming from a place of bias. Yes, I've got a Khalil Mack signed picture right here, and I've got a Jay Cutler helmet right here, and I am a Bears fan, but I have been biting my tongue all season on Justin Fields until now. At this point, we know that you don't have to be a great real-life quarterback to be an elite fantasy quarterback. Look at Jalen Hurts, for example. All year, people were talking about benching him for Gardner Minshew, and it didn't matter. He just kept churning out top 5 weeks in fantasy. Justin Fields is set up for this type of season. Now, the first few weeks, the Chicago Bears were running such an anemic offense that every single person on Chicago was rendered essentially useless. But now they're finally starting to open things up a little bit and let Justin Fields do what he does best: run the ball. Right now, Justin Fields is on pace for 800 rushing yards this season. Only 7 quarterbacks in NFL history have eclipsed 800 rushing yards on the ground. Regardless of what he does through the air, if he's putting up that sort of rushing output, he is going to be a good fantasy player. Through his first 5 starts last year, Justin Fields had a total of 23 rushing attempts. Matt Nagy was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole and asking Justin Fields to stand tall in the pocket and create passes downfield rather than doing what he does best. In his 6th and 7th starts, though, Justin Fields was unleashed by Matt Nagy. He had 18 rushing attempts for 148 yards and was the QB3 over those 2 weeks. And then he picked up an injury and didn't get to start for the rest of the season, and it was kind of all downhill from there. And now it looks like Matt Eberflus is recognizing the same thing that Matt Nagy took a few weeks to realize last year. Justin Fields is at his best when he can run the ball. Over the last 2 weeks, Justin Fields has 20 rushing attempts for 135 yards. It's a small sample size, sure, but if we extrapolate that over a full 17 games, we're looking at 1,150 rushing yards on the ground, which would be Lamar Jackson-esque. Now, there's still an opportunity to buy low on Justin Fields because he has left a few points on the board. In Thursday night's primetime loss to the Washington Commanders, you probably saw it. Justin Fields threw up a perfectly placed ball in the end zone for Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney juggled the ball and was tackled just short. Points left on the board. The week before, Justin Fields ripped off a 52-yard rushing touchdown that was called back on a pretty iffy block in the back call. Let's just ignore the touchdown throw that was short to Darnell Mooney, and let's just add that rushing touchdown to Justin Fields' output. Right now, over the last 2 weeks, he is the QB10 overall. If we tack on that 52-yard touchdown run to his scores over the last 2 weeks, he would be the QB3 overall behind only Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. This is the type of ceiling that we had envisioned with Justin Fields, and it could finally be coming to fruition. Now, Bill Belichick has made a career out of making it difficult for young quarterbacks to do much. So facing off against the New England Patriots this week, he could have a tough task ahead of him. After New England and Dallas, Justin Fields' schedule really opens up as he gets Miami, Detroit, and Atlanta in back-to-back-to-back weeks. If he is able to maintain his rushing output on the ground over the next 2 weeks, he could be set up for a fantasy explosion in those next few weeks. In the offseason, I talked about how Justin Fields could possibly finish as a low-end QB1, and we're seeing that right now over the last few weeks. If you are in a 2-quarterback or super flex league, it is a no-brainer to go out there and get Justin Fields. But even if you're in a single QB league, Justin Fields has all of the athleticism and the ability to finish as a top 5 quarterback for the rest of the year. If I'm on a league where I don't have a sure thing quarterback, I'm trying to bring in Justin Fields, even if I just stash him on the bench for the next couple of weeks to see what could happen. His upside is so immense that he is worth the gamble. If he's rostered on somebody else's team, go out and try to acquire him for cheap because he has a huge ceiling. So those are the 3 guys that I am trying my hardest to get on as many teams as I can this week: Darrell Henderson, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Justin Fields. If you like this video and you think I gave you some good advice, drop us a thumbs up. And if you got anything to add, leave a comment below. As always, be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys, where we're bringing you these great videos almost every single day in season. Drop me a follow on Twitter at Dave Kluge. Thank you so much for checking this video out, and I will see you next week.